Okay. Hey, Aaron. Hey, Marcus.
Hey, how's it going, Ryan?
Hi,
Good.
Ryan.
How's it going? Okay, so I'm gonna kick it over to you, Aaron, to just get us set up and let us know what we're doing today.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone so much for taking a few minutes out of your day to check out our brief mini lesson about some strategies and tools to support a root cause analysis. So we have a few things that we hope you get out of your time today. By the end of this video, you should be able to describe the parts of a fishbone diagram. You should also be able to describe how a data drill down leads to a fishbone diagram. And then finally, we hope that you will be able to describe how this fishbone diagram leads to your next steps as a function of support for your root cause analysis. So with that being said, this video is going to run through a few questions that we've come across as we've been investigating how to share this information with y'all in a meaningful way. So I'm going to start us off with a question. And Ryan, I'm going to ask you this question. I understand that the fishbone metaphor uses those big bones and little bones. Can you tell me what the difference is?
Yeah. Okay. So like the metaphor it comes from the fact that the diagram itself, as you could like see in the slide here, it almost looks like a set of fish bones. And so over here is like where the head of the fish should be, right? And that's the problem statement. And then Aaron, your question is about the big bones, which is like, here's an example, these longer lines that come off here like this. And those big bones represent possible causes of the problem statement. All right. So like the example that we have here is, a very plausible disproportionality related example. In the 21-22 school year, our district identified Hispanic students at a rate that was 3 times more than all other race groups. So identified for special education. And the big bone that comes off the metaphorical spine here of the fish and the fishbone diagram is inconsistent designated ELD, right? So at this point in the process, you don't know for sure that this is one of the main causes, but knowing that when you did your data drill down, that students who are identified with SLD in this hypothetical district happen to be English learners, this is a plausible cause. So that's the big bone. And then you'll also see these horizontal lines here, and those are the little bones. Okay, so what do the little bones represent? Well, if the big bones are possible primary causes, the little bones are the things that come up, the smaller details that come up when your team is having conversations about the bigger causes. So I want you to imagine you're sitting around the table and you're saying, let's talk about this idea of inconsistent designated ELD. You will have details that come up naturally in that conversation that you'll want to note down, and those become smaller bones of the fishbone diagram. The examples here are lessons aren't planned based on standards, and then there are unclear learning objectives. Note here that these are details that you could observe and validate in real life. And so that's where the fishbone diagram becomes useful. So in summary, to the question, what is the difference between a big bone and a small bone? The big bone in the diagram is a possible main cause of the problem. And then the little bones are details that came up when you talk about the big bone. Okay, Marcus, so you had a question about the relationship between data drill down, which we did in the last phase, and the fishbone diagram. I'm gonna kick it over to you.
Yes, my question is, we just got done doing the data drill down. Now we're doing a fishbone diagram. Why are they jumping around?
Yeah, really good question. So we've got all these processes and tools, that we're giving you. And so understandable that sometimes they can just feel like tools in a toolbox and you don't necessarily know what it is that you're building. So glad that this is a question. And here's the way we think about this. The data drill down that you did, so we've just got done grading a bunch of these assignments for y'all. And what you learned in your data drill down gives you, informs what you think of as the possible causes for your problem statement. So recall that your possible causes are illustrated by the big bones, right? In the case of our ELD example, that was inconsistent ELD instruction. But if you remember, the whole reason why that came up as a possible cause is because you learned in this hypothetical scenario that from your data drill down, that when looking at your students with IEPs who are Hispanic, that you found that many of them are English language learners. And so you can see how that feeds into what goes into populating your fishbone diagram or any of the other tools that are popular when we do root cause analysis. And then, of course, looking at small bones gives you a chance then to progress. You know, if you've gone from your data drill down to the big bones, and the big bones lead you to the small bones, which are the details that will show you where in your system you want to observe a process, whether that's an SST or maybe an ELD lesson or a planning session for a lesson or something like that. So in summary, looking at the big and small bones helps you brainstorm what you're going to do next, but doing the data drill down gives you all the information you need to do that brainstorm in an informed way. Okay, great question. So I'm going to give this over to, this question is mine. Okay, so far we've talked about why we call it a fishbone diagram, what those metaphors mean. And then after that, we talked about why do we do a data drill down? And now we're doing a fishbone, how do they connect? Now we're going to talk about what comes after a fishbone diagram, because having done many of these, I know it's easy to think, okay, so I've got this fishbone diagram and I filled out the big bones and then I filled out the little bones. Now we're done. We can move on to the next step, right? But we know that one of the most dangerous things that you can do in this situation is accidentally just stop taking your next step after the fishbone diagram. So question for Aaron, when I'm done with the fishbone diagram, what should I be doing next?
That's a good question. And it's one when you look up, maybe even you're curious folks to like Google, what is a fishbone diagram? That question comes up a lot. And I think that's where a lot of folks get stuck and stop, right? We think we've come up with our cause. We think perhaps we have a solution, and we take all these beautiful things and we stick it up on our wall and we're done. Something that we've really found though is that we want to resist this urge, because ultimately the information you're going to find in this fishbone, which is again just one tool you can use within your root cause analysis work, it's going to lead you to areas that you might want to experiment with changes. Perhaps you have identified a few different possible causes, and one of them really feels like something you're interested as a team in making some changes around. Maybe you have the ability to make some changes around it. That's where you go next. That becomes a part of your plan. That becomes a part of the work that you're going to do. Those details that come up when you talk about the main causes are really going to help inform the plan and the work you're going to do, especially in this situation with your SIM plan going forward as a district, to make some positive impacts, hopefully, with that problem statement around your disproportionality work. So going back to that ELD example you talked about, Ryan, someone identifies and really does want to look into that inconsistent ELD work. Perhaps they look at providing more professional development on the ELD standards for folks within their LEA. We have a couple of trainings, on ELD coming up with our SELPA. Maybe you're going to send a few folks there to talk about pre-referral work and how you are providing designated ELD time within your block, or making sure to provide the types of interventions that do support English learners within your system. So it's about taking those causes and using it to inform some action items that you can do. Now, do we at ED&D or even within this work expect you to take every cause that you found? Absolutely not. Pick some ones that are reasonable and that you feel like you can accomplish, and we encourage you to continue that work as part of your plan and make some of those changes that you can. So with that being said, we want to encourage y'all. Hopefully this little video gave you an idea on how to use the Fishbone diagram tool as a resource within your root cause analysis to take your problem statement and identify some possible causes to make your plan around. But if you're interested in having a bit more help or even collaboration, as a team, we are going to provide a couple of sessions right now, they're on the calendar, for you to learn how to connect that data drill down and your problem statement to those possible causes in a collaborative environment. So we've got 2 trainings scheduled, 2 mini lessons again, scheduled on the 10th of August and the 24th of August from 3 until 4. And our goal there is to talk you through a few more steps, give you some work time, and also some time to collaborate with other LEAs on possible ideas for your different causes and even perhaps your plan and action items you can do going forward. So we hope you'll join us there. And as always, if you feel like you have a unique situation, please reach out to us and schedule a coaching session. Adrian Batista's email's in there along with the Eventbrite links. So thanks so much, y'all.
Thanks, everybody. See you soon. Bye-bye.
See you later.